Hi, my name is ElsaMarie DSilva.
I'm Prathima Manohar, and we've been hosting the Inclusive City live casts.
This is in collaboration with Stanford Centre for Democracy, Development and the Rule of Law's Leadership Network for Change.
And the agenda of inclusive cities is crucial for the future of our world, and I hope you enjoy these series.
We've put together a digest of the top experts, so do check it out.
So I don't think, I think the new order, the new world order, because of information technology and because of this realization and climate doesn't know any borders either. Pandemics don't know any borders. So I think the new order is going to have to be much more cooperative, and innovations will come from many different countries, not just from United States or not just from Europe. I think that ideas are being developed in so many countries around the world, and they will be the new world order that I think will be much more cooperative and not blaming everyone. And my gosh, the entire world needs to reduce their, including the United States, reduce their expenditure on weapons. For what? Right? Our goal. I mean, what's really, there's no weapon against COVID, right? So forget about how much defense spending, spend on fossil fuels and a brighter future for everyone, more equity around the world, and I think it's possible, and I think it's doable, and we should, each one of us, really be an agent of that change.
And take COVID into account. Something I never heard in this conversation is climate change, right? That's coming. What are we going to do about that? That's just around the corner. So instead of waiting for another 10 years and then facing the things then, we have enough information within India and from outside how to take climate change issues into this planning process. It's after all reduction. I mean, if you simplify climate change, it is reduction in pollution, better public transport, more walking, more cycling. Cycling is connected to health. Health is connected to diabetics. Diabetics and heart diseases are connected to COVID. It's all connected. So I would leave a positive message by saying, let's not panic and over focus on just one area or two area, because no matter what you do, these are all interconnected, and we don't have any choice but to patiently deal with every other thing that happened before pandemic and after pandemic.
I think the biggest thing COVID-19's done is what we said earlier. It's shown us all the fault lines. It's shown us who has access and who doesn't have access, who has access to healthcare services, who has access to public spaces, who has access to anything outside of their tiny dwelling unit that they're in, especially even in New York. This has been my experience firsthand. It's showing us all the problems, all the inequities that plague our cities everywhere. And it is so sad that it takes something like this to see that the poor person doesn't have access to the same things as the rich person does in their city. And the poor person is more vulnerable to death and loss of life than the richer person, just because their city failed to cater to them. So it's shown us the fault lines. The hope is that the fault lines that we now see will actually do something about plugging them in. In answer to who shapes whom here, pandemics shape cities, absolutely, similar to what we were just hearing from Prathima. But what shapes disease is policies. Policies shape disease. Budgetary priorities shape cities. What do we spend our common dollars on? That's what shapes disease. If we focus on human well-being as opposed to GDPs and per capita income and other things, if our focus were human well-being, we would allocate our common resources very, very differently. So policies shape cities. If anything that we can see now from the United States and from New York, it's not how our city was designed. It's how our money flows through that city. That's what's causing this disease to become what it is.
During my graduate studies at Oxford, I came closer to understanding part of what would be the paradigm shift in urban development today. And one of those was the fact that we need to move away from the traditional disciplines that understand city and urban, the planners, the engineers, to start embracing more the non-traditional disciplines, and how they would understand their role in city life. Now, the placemaking concept allows for these non-traditional actors to play a role in conceiving this multidisciplinary way of looking at sustainable urban development, and where expertise is not in the discipline, but rather is on the community as the expert. So if we are able to take this, I think what Ethan is trying to push forward around the world with the placemaking and place governance concepts is truly one of the ways in which we could actually achieve this with communities as experts. Will this become part of the urban agenda and the next SDGs at UN level? Of course, yes. And as I said, if you look at programming within Habitat, for example, the city's resilience profiling program, you already find some of the solutions already having been conceived a couple of years back, with the idea of equipping cities with tools, empowering communities, improving the accountability of communities with local governments, providing a common understanding of the resiliency framework, and mobilizing action and transformational changes. So I think the new urban agenda is our plan of action that has a myriad of solutions. It's not so much now about the what, it's the how. And I sense, for example, if we look at national urban policies today, in the way they are institutionalized within government will make the difference.
I very much like the mention of footpaths, because I believe what makes a difference between an advanced and backward city in terms of infrastructure is not that we have metros or highways, but that we have good sidewalks. I was almost impeached in my first term as mayor because I had waged a war to get cars off the sidewalks where they used to be parked. I even put bollards to prevent cars from being from parking in the sidewalk, so that we would respect pedestrians. But of course, the business people who had their business based on cars parking on the sidewalk, they made a big campaign, and they even made the stupidest campaign that it was that my family or my brothers or my mother, I don't know exactly whom, had a bollard factory. Stupid things that were not even in the press or not even in investigation, just urban legends that I had some kind of business with bollard. The same way that as I fight for the BRT, for the bus system, other political calumnies that I have some kind of business with the Volvo buses or stupid things like this. But this sidewalk issue, I think, and what makes a difference, again, between advanced and backward cities is sidewalks. And I would almost add protected bikeways, because bicycling is almost a more efficient way of walking. It's a beautiful way to move. I mean, a human being on a bicycle is an extremely efficient way to use energy. So these are political decisions. We must be very careful. As you say, I mean, India should really learn from Latin America, because Latin America is about 50 years ahead or so from India in economic development and urbanization. And it should not learn for the good things that we did, but it should learn from the wrong things that we did. The Indian cities of the year 2070, the year city of 2070, 2080, have been built only between 10 and 20%. 10 of the cities that India is going to have in the year 2000 and in 50 years or 60 years from now, only 10% has been built. Only 10%. Maybe at the most 20%. So the other 80%, which has yet to be built, could be better than London or New York or Paris, because you could create an infrastructure that they cannot create. You, for example, also India is a tropical country mostly, so you could have these greenways, thousands of greenways, a whole network of greenways, where we could crisscross the city shaded by giant tropical trees, by the neem trees of India and all the others. Uh, uh, and this is possible, and it does not cost much money. It just takes imagination and political decision. And of course, this will create equality, because one of the good things about a good city is that in a good city, rich and poor meet as equals. Rich and poor meet as equals.
Well, to complement Professor Aguada, I would say that this pandemic has changed, in my opinion, the perception that we have about the market and the state. For instance, the market theory tells you that source has more value than a nurse, right? The whole, they're more educated, their work is much more specialized. And this pandemic has demonstrated the contrary, that nurses are even more important than doctors, that police officers and transport drivers are more important than engineers, are more important than, So what is going on is that we need to have a new approach about markets. Markets are just one way of determining value, but there is another ones. Here in Peru, people in the agriculture sectors and traders in the popular markets has been the heroes of the country, because they have provided us all the food that we needed of these 4 months. And where the professionals where the engineers and the doctors were in their houses, just isolated there. So the people who were, with the lowest salaries, with more lower productivity levels, they has been the heroes of Peru. And so what happened with markets? They are not supposed to be, not valued. So this is a very good way of reflecting about how we value things in our society. And one of the things that we have see here in Peru is that the virus beat economic ideology. It was incredible. We have been decades, discussing about what is better, orthodox or heterodox economic policies, but the virus came and destroyed that discussion because there was no option. The only option was the state to intervene to help people. So that was great for Peru, because the lessons that we have here, and in terms of the new state that you are asking, is that there is no way that we can achieve welfare without a state intervention. There is no way.
Yeah, so I think this is a great chance for us to work on the trust deficit issue. I've been talking about this for a very long time, that mainstream media, Bollywood, and most of the regional film industries in India, they project police in such a bad manner that this stereotypical projection has been ingrained in the minds of people, that police is bad, police is insensitive. But I strongly disagree, because if you look at the way how police have been at the front line during this pandemic, and how they are going out of the way, going beyond the core mandate of their duties, and how they are reaching out to the people and the community, that is really commendable. And I think we need to bring this positive image of the people to the population, so that that trust deficit is addressed. So this is also an appeal to the media, mainstream media in particular, that you should also write about the positive work, the contribution that is being done by the law enforcement to the society. You cannot just call the entire fraternity as bad just because of the actions of one or two black sheeps in the fraternity. That is not fair. And on the part of the police side, I think these are great opportunities for us to learn our lessons, and start investing heavily in imparting sensitivity training to the force. I think that is going to be the most important investment for the future as far as law enforcement is concerned. Unless we invest heavily in sensitivity training, improve our responses to the community, we will never be able to win the trust of the community we serve.
East ward of Mumbai, which is called as most vulnerable ward of Mumbai after Dharavi. So we know that it's a huge population. It's a densely populated areas wherein one toilet has been used by 1,400 people approximately. So it do not come under any standards given by World Bank or Swachh Bharat Mission or any corporation guidelines. And we all have been locked down. We are at home, but there are so many people in our communities. They have no other option but to go out in order to get water and use the toilets. So they do not have that luxury of sitting at a home and having a lockdown.
All work, which is tourists that used to come in, are not traveling at all. In the next few months, nobody's going to hop on to a train or a plane unless you're really forced to, and something really life-threatening, or very essential to your livelihood. You're not going to take a break for sure in a train or a plane in the coming months. But what you trust is your personal car, right? Outside your home, your fort, your safe house, it's your personal car and where it can take you. So basically, places, cities within 3 to 6 hours of larger cities will be the first ones to kind of come out, I think, out of this pandemic, and they need to gear up for it. So that's how we're kind of thinking about it. The reason I kind of chose Pushkar was also that it had the strength of the Golden Triangle kind of feeding it, and yet it was a small 20,000 population strong. It's a very small city on its own, and so that's how I think things will come out first.
Yeah, it's 10% of
actually that's the kind of best way too, because if we can prioritize that, like one of the biggest criticisms about tourism is the long flights taken, and that's one of the most kind of fossil fuel burning and polluting things we do in the world today. So if we can make people travel less, if you can prioritize kind of regional tourism, having some economic incentives, or just pure awareness that, look, you've got such great things around you, and what you can do, I think that'll go a long way.
The other innovation is that I think that I talked earlier about bringing the country into the city. In my city, I happen to live in an incredibly pleasant city of Bristol, that a third of the city is open, green or blue space, if you can call water blue space. It's not very blue, but we have a third of the city is open space. What has been absolutely noticeable is the way that nature is thriving in the city during this time. And that may not be what you'd call an innovation. It's not a tech innovation. It's absolutely the opposite, but it's one that people are really appreciating. And I think when we go back, and let's hope we get a vaccine that works and that people accept, when we go back, I think people are going to hang on to a bit of some of those benefits. The birds have got louder. They've got tamer. The traffic noise has subsided. Now, if we get traffic, it must all go electric or hydrogen. It is completely unacceptable to go back to cities that are full of fumes from internal combustion engines. So the innovations are actually about people walking down the middle of the street. They're about those human things that make life so much better. And the innovation to me is actually seeing my family every week because we have a Zoom quiz or conversation in a way that I haven't been seeing every week because we're dispersed. And seeing you again, Prathima, I think the innovations are those little things, but thank God we've got the technology that has made them possible. And the other thing is in trade, I think things are going to change the way we do things. Obviously, we hope that we don't have to socially distance. I look forward to hugging my friends again. You know, it's terrible that there is no physical contact. But I think I haven't used I've not had one cash transaction in the last 2 months. It's all been card or phone transaction. And so I think cash will get less and less important, and we will get used to a world virtually without cash.